The knowledge of how the casting process works is very, very important. A lot of people have been asking me about the casting process, so I'm going to break it down for you in a few simple steps. The first thing you need to know in order to understand the casting process is what a casting director actually does. There's a lot of misconceptions about casting directors, so let's break it down. There's two types of casting directors. There's what's called online casting, and then there's studio and network casting. So let's talk about online casting first. Online casting is the individual office that casts the project. So if we're talking about my show, Pretty Little Liars, that was the office of Zane Pillsbury. We cast the show. Now, here's one of the bigger misconceptions about casting directors. Casting directors aren't the people that say yes or no, you get the job. Casting directors are more like facilitators. They bring in the actors so that other people can make the decisions. Now, on the other side is studio and network casting. They are the oversight committee. Each studio and each network has a casting department that oversees the project for that studio and network. So let's go ahead and break down the casting process a little bit. And in order to do this, we're going to talk about the types of projects you guys ultimately want to be on, like large scale movies and TV projects. Those kinds of projects are going to be gate kept behind a system called Breakdown Express. Breakdown Express is broken down into two sides, Actors Access and Breakdown Express. Actors Access is the side you guys have access to. So you upload your pictures and your reels on there, and you can self-submit on that side. The problem is the things you guys can self-submit to are like student films, short films, that kind of stuff. The projects you want to be a part of are held on Breakdown Express. Only agents, managers, and casting directors have access to Breakdown Express. These larger projects will post their breakdowns on Breakdown Express. Breakdown Express is free to casting directors, and agents and managers pay for it. So agents and managers see those breakdowns, they submit on them. Then casting looks through those submissions and pulls in actors to see. In order to go deeper into the casting process, we have to break down the types of roles. So let's talk about television first. Television is broken down into three categories: series regular, co-star, and guest star. There's also recurring, but that falls into co-star and guest star too. So let's start with co-star. There is a common misconception about co-star roles. People will often say that co-star has to do with the number of lines, but this is not true. It has everything to do with the budget and the payment. Co-star has to do with the way you pay an actor. You can pay them for any number of days. Whereas guest star, you can typically only pay for one or all days. Some shows have a 3-day guest star, but that is incredibly rare. The reason that roles are categorized as co-star versus guest star has to do with the budget of the show. They will ordinarily only budget out a few guest stars, and every other role is categorized as a co-star. So sometimes you'll have very large co-stars. A recurring role, and that's recurring, not reoccurring, is anyone who's in more than one episode, and that can be a co-star or a guest star. And then a series regular is someone who is contractually in a lot of the episodes, and that's broken into all shows produced, 10 out of 13, and 7 out of 13. That has a very different audition process, which we will do in a different video because that is a much longer process. Today we're focusing on co-stars and guest stars. Once casting has the scripts, pulls the sides, which is the portion of the script they use for auditions, sent the sides off to sides processing, and posted the breakdowns, agents and managers submit. Casting then goes through those submissions. For every one-line co-star, they get about 7,000 submissions. So casting is going through all of the submissions, but it depends on the type of role. So for a one-line co-star, they may not be watching every reel. For a guest star, recurring series regular, they're probably going through every reel, every submission, every email, every phone call to try to find new people. It is a misconception that casting only cares about submissions from CAA, UTA, and WME, because if they're trying to find new talent, it's most likely not coming from there. Also, some of those agencies don't use the breakdowns, so it would not be in their benefit to only take submissions from there. From there, the process is different. We're talking about a co-star. They will go through their submissions, narrow them down, have people send in self-tapes. Casting will watch those self-tapes and most likely send their selects to the producers. Producers will then pick a favorite. The favorite will be passed along to studio. Studio will have to approve even that one-line co-star, pass it along to network. Network will have to approve it, and then the offer will go out. If it's a larger role, it could be the same process. They could have a callback session, but ultimately it's the approval process that works the same way. Now, none of this takes into effect the idea that there could be callbacks or chemistry reads, offers going out, and the series regular process, which is much longer, more intensive, and involves testing. If you're not going in for these auditions, if you're not great at self-taping yet, these are all things that need to be assessed. Actors tend to place blame on their reps, on casting. But remember, guys, it's a puzzle. So your materials are part of the puzzle, you are part of the puzzle, reps are part of the puzzle, the way you audition is part of the puzzle. But the knowledge of how the casting process works is very, very important. Casting is responsible for bringing in the right people for the role, but not for making the decision.